How are y'all doing today? Wow, what a great day. May meeting and all that, and dinner in the Grove. It's going to be a little messy, but we're going to go for it. No. Yeah, these white shoes. Yeah, I wore white shoes just to, it's just. You know, technically last week, the guy standing up in the pulpit in the robe said we were going to have beautiful weather today. And so from an Old Testament standpoint, the false prophecy, so he should be stoned to death. But yeah, it's just.
Don't say it's going to be pretty tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I'm never good at that. It's kind of like that Super Bowl thing, you know. I'm not really right very many times. But we continue on, and it's amazing, too, that, yes, it's May meeting here, and we have communion today, so we think about that, and we think about what those implications are for us as the people of faith. And then we get together, and we break bread around tables again, but it will be in the fellowship hall. But because we couldn't have everybody out there, it's a little muddy. But the other part here is that we are kind of winding down the last part of Easter too, because we're getting close to Ascension Thursday and then Pentecost and the like. So it is amazing how fast it has gone this year. I mean, it really and truly, when you think about it, we're doing May meeting right now. It just seemed like, you know, we were just celebrating the New Year, but it's kind of rolling. But we think about how Easter goes on too, and think about this: that when after Easter, you have this celebration of this season that we have going on. That this is where Jesus, the resurrected Christ, is still interacting with the disciples along the way before you get to Ascension Thursday. So it's still in that period, and that's why we do Easter the way we do it in the church, as opposed to consumerism Easter, where, you know, you do chocolate bunnies one day, and then the next day you come back and they're, you know, 65-70% off, and you're getting other stuff out for that. But as the church, we're still in this mode of, Jesus is still interacting and with the disciples and along the way. Now this year, the way it's worked, for whatever reason, my fascination with 1 John, we're sticking with that instead, and going through that, which has been really interesting to me, just how much 1 John continues on that theme that comes out of the Gospel of John, chapter 14, I think. You know, the great commandment is love one another for them. So we'll pick up with that again today, and we'll have a lay reader come up and anyway. Is it hot in here?
It's on the kitchen, huh?
Okay, gotcha. Go ahead.
All right. Our scripture today is 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 through 6. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ has been born of God, and everyone who loves the parent loves the child. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey his commandments. For the love of God is this, that we obey his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. For whatever is born of God conquers the world, and this is the victory that conquers the world, our faith. Who is it that conquers the world but the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? This is the one who came by water and blood, Jesus Christ, not with the water only, but with the water and the blood. And the Spirit is the one that testifies, for the Spirit is the truth.
Thank you, ma'am. Familiar? No? Okay. I love this part too. The first part's familiar, and we have a no, and we have some going, yeah, this is familiar. Some go, no, and that's always a helpful thing to me, because again, because of people like me, we kind of tend to live in our heads, and so and we just, of course everybody knows this, you know. it's in there. You've read it. It's there. Gone through this many times. It's, every third year, here we go. This is it. And y'all are going, maybe some. I do remember that one first, or, and the like. So it's always fun to hear, or at least to see reaction and go, oh yeah, everybody doesn't live in this every single day, which is a part, actually, an interesting aspect of what was going on in that first century. So for those people kind of familiar, I'll just rehash. It'll be review for some, but 1 John, into the first century, early part of the second century. So this is a group that's removed from the original, disciples that walked with Jesus, or the connection there. And so this congregation, they're having this turmoil, that they have this group that was either in the church and left, or in the church and got kicked out, or they're still hovering around on the edge, trying to cause trouble. And the issue at hand is this kind of what they call Gnosticism, that the Christ and Jesus were really two separate entities. They have this conversation that the Christ comes into Jesus at baptism and then leaves while he's on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? So this Christ kind of swoops in and swoops out, because flesh and blood are taboo, bad. So they obviously couldn't be a part of the faith. And so they're bringing this teaching to this group of people, and it's considered heresy, still is considered heresy, but that they've been asked to move on, or they moved on down the street to start their own church, or the sort of thing. And so this congregation, they're having this doctrinal encounter that's causing trouble, and they're kind of confused as to what to believe and what to think. And so the writer of 1 John, if it's connected to John of the Gospel, I would say so, but he's saying, no, remember what you were told from the very beginning. Jesus was, flesh and blood. He walked on the earth. He suffered. He encountered exactly what we encountered, and he was not Messiah-like or Messiah-filled for a little bit, or sort of kind of maybe, he was the real deal, fully God, fully human, and that's essential to what their faith is. And y'all knew that from the beginning. You know who you are. You know who you belong to. So don't, panic. And it is interesting, isn't it, when you watch kind of theological encounters that go on in congregations, and they have issues, how there's kind of turmoil that begins and kind of plays out. We've been through ours in our denomination. As this congregation's an individual congregation, it's been through its own. Now we're watching kind of our Methodist brothers and sisters kind of work through theirs. And then, as we all know, if you have any friends, family, whatever, who in a congregation that's going through kind of doctrinal issues they're trying to wade through, people are like, boy, we don't know what to do. I got a brother who feels this way, and I got a sister, and they're mad, and that's how congregations, that's just how it works, and how people kind of have to sift through those things. And that's kind of what they're going through over this issue in the first century, or second century, right on the edge of that. So what jumped out, or what seemed familiar, or what didn't seem familiar?
Well, I got stumped on the last part of that first verse.
Okay,
Everyone who loves the parent loves the child.
okay.
So was that referring to if you love God, you love Jesus? Or is that because if I love my sister, I have to love her child?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean?
I think this is John's rationality, and I kind of stumbled through that, myself this week. I mean, thinking about it. Well, actually, I've had to think about it the last 2 weeks because Donna was on vacation this week, so I had to have the bulletin done the week before, and so the sermon title has nothing to do with where the sermon went because I had to come up with something 2 weeks ago because I had to get the bulletin printed, and I was like, here, write that down. And I was like, even once I said, it'll never end up like that. I know it won't. But, hey, there you go, blah. So we've been thinking about this too. So there is this, in John's rationale, is that you love the parent, you obviously love the child. I don't know that that's totally true. I don't know that that's totally true. I mean, yeah, it would be hard for me to sell me on this one, okay? But his rationale is, and that's somewhere, sometimes we have to take it from that standpoint. And what John's rationale is, the parent, the child is from the parent, so you love that one. And so, yes, there is this notion that from, if you love God, you love the child, you love Jesus. Also, that he's connecting everybody else who is connected to Jesus as a child of God. And so if you love the parent, then you love the child. So it's like, if you love God, then obviously you love the children of God. Right. Yeah, it carries out. So if anything and this also connects back to that flesh and blood conversation that he's having with them, that Jesus wasn't just this ethereal, you could walk up and, kind of stick your finger through, Casper Ghost kind of thing. And that is what Gnosticism basically is that, Jesus was, of course he didn't suffer like we did. That's not, and we're like, okay, our faith says, yeah, he did. So if you love the parent, you love the child, and then that translates out to everybody else. And also then that whatever you do to the children, you're doing back to the parent. And so his argument also is how they're treating each other, which, as we've established in each week, what's he keep saying? Love one another, love one another, love one another. So obviously, or maybe what we assume the argument is how they're treating each other. And that his argument to them is how you understand God, how you understand Jesus as the Messiah, translates and plays out to how you treat each other. And so this is that same thing. You love the parent, you love the child. And also the reverse, you love the child, you love the parent. And that the interactions that you're having with each other, how I treat you is how I treat Christ or God. And so the thought process there is how you're treating each other matters. And how you understand God matters in how you treat each other. Well, wow, that's a great question. I mean, it is really, well, they're saying that this spirit, this Christ thingy came and then left him. Right. It could, yeah, well, yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And then that other notion that comes from it is that when that spirit, when you get it, then you got it. And then if you don't get it, if you're enlightened in a way that others are not. Now that's a good question. I don't know that. I really know Gnosticism more from just from the cross. I've never really thought about it yeah. Ba- Well, it's at the end of the first, yeah, you start seeing it at the end of the first century. You do. I have to think about that part. I've never thought about it prior to then. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's a good question. Ugh. I don't know. I have to think about that some other day. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're going to get me lost off in that now. But it's text. But he's also, so they're trying to, what John's trying to get them to see is how this part of their Christian faith affects how they interact with each other, which is interesting in how sometimes people can have Christian faith, as we talked about, Sister Smith growing up, testifying how she loves everybody, and then you're like, I don't know, she's not a really nice person, as far as I know. And so how that translates out to how we interact with each other. Yeah. What else? I hope that answered your question to somewhat extent. Yeah. I'm not necessarily sure that I buy the rationale that just because you love the parent, you love the child.
Well, it's like anything else, the wording
Yeah.
for that audience is always,
Yeah.
confusing.
Right. And you have to understand he's trying to make an argument for a particular group of people. Yeah. In a particular time. Yeah. What else? Great. Everybody's got it. We understand it all.
I don't want to hog the conversation.
We got 13 minutes. Go.
Well, I like the reference to the Ten Commandments.
Okay.
Well, I'm assuming it's the Ten Commandments.
Which one?
It's verse 3.
Okay.
We obey his commandments.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was thinking, I was trying to think, I'll look at the commandments again.
What?
Because
Mhm.
A lot of those have to do, a lot of those have to do with how you treat other people.
Yeah, the first, 4 are towards God, and the last 6 are towards how we treat each other, right? And he could also be talking about here about the commandments, referring back to John 14, where he says, love, I give you a new commandment, love one another. Could be, right. But go ahead. He also says they're not burdensome. I had to struggle with that one this week too. I guess this again another argument that he's making with them, that is if you truly love God, loving one another is not such a chore. Again, is that an yeah? Well, again, and also as I say all the time, the church would be a great place if it weren't for the people, and me included. I have to include myself in there because some people could say that I might be difficult to work with. I mean,
He makes it so simple, but it's the hardest thing to do. That's all you have to do is just love everybody.
yeah. The Bruce Reyes chow. It's all that easy. It's all that hard. It's all that easy. It's all that hard. But and I guess too, an amazing thing. Yeah, he says this isn't burdensome, and maybe it isn't in theory thing. And again, he's trying to make a point that he's trying to get these people. Apparently, they are really disturbed by what's gone on in their congregation, and in this group of people who are trying to push this agenda. Jesus wasn't really flesh and blood, and so they're really struggling with their issues and how they can function, and he's trying to calm them down and trying to get them to see, if you really love God and you really love each other, it shouldn't be this difficult. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Faith conquers the world.
Uh-huh.
And so it seems that in
Yeah.
focusing on love,
Mm-hmm.
maybe he goes on to say
Yeah.
that, who is it that conquers the world? But the one who believes that
Yeah.
Jesus is the Christ.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe he's pushing that concept a little more than
Yeah.
just love one another.
Right. Well, yeah, you're getting really close to the sermon, so whoa. But, whoa, no. But, yeah, I am sure. I'm really sure. I know what the sermon is. The sermon title, you will go, when you get through, you go, yeah, that wasn't even close to the sermon title. It's not, okay, I'm telling you. But you're right. That he is trying to get them to see that people who believe that the important focus of this doctrinal issue, that it's not just some trivial thing, that Jesus, a real flesh and blood, walking the earth, interacting with human beings, showing compassion to lepers and women who've been caught in adultery and all those kind of things, that he's not just a Messiah, he's not just a good guy, he's not, a really neat teacher, and, he is the Messiah.
And is he writing at a time that there will still be some people who have met Jesus?
Well, that's if you see that's the great point. Now, I think at the end of the first century, they are moving away from that. Now, he says in chapter 1, verse 1, which I love. It was one of the most, when you had third year Greek and you're sitting there and you're talking about the perfect tense and all that stuff, and you're thinking, what does this matter? And then you read that and you go, oh my gosh, this is seriously incredibly cool that a translation doesn't point out, but that he's saying this guy that we met, we talked to him, and his words are still ringing in our ears all these years later. I do think there is this point that this is that transitional place where these are people who have no idea what that was like. And that this writer is truly trying to make this point. No, this other stuff is not where it's at.
So is he trying to convince them to not go back to looking for the Messiah, but to understand that Jesus is the Christ, he's
Yeah.
the Messiah?
Yeah. I think the argument, it's something like that. We don't totally know what the argument totally is, but that he's trying to get them, everybody this is the faith. And this is the faith that conquers the world. This stuff over there, these guys are talking about, it's going to lead you to places that don't matter and really cause you. And again, I think that if we can, we watch and think about some of those places that we've been at in a church where there is this really serious issue, and how that causes distress, how he's trying to be really pastoral and go, hey, y'all, you know who you are. And arguments aren't going to win this. We're not going to be able to out-talk them, but what makes a difference is that that this love and this faith that has been handed down to us is what's going to change the world. And it's what's going to calm us here in this really turbulent period of what we're going through. And whenever we've seen that in the past, and when we will see it in the future in the church, because one thing we know about church is cycles roll around and people have their moments, and we have our issues that we're dealing with, and how do we maneuver through them? And I think he's trying to tell them.
This is another thing about words, the word conquer. When you said change, it made more sense to me.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
the word conquer sounds
Yeah.
more warlike,
Yeah.
like the Romans, like they're
Right.
thinking that Jesus was gonna be the king,
Mm-hmm.
the way they thought then,
Right.
instead of just
Yeah.
that they're trying to change it through faith.
Right. Yeah.
So meanings might, even though they might be translated, the
Mhm.
meanings over the years
Yeah.
maybe change.
We bump into things. Yeah, we're only 2,000 years removed in different language and different culture and different a lot of things. Yeah, because normally too, what do we think when we hear the word conquer?
Beat somebody in a
We do
war.
think
War.
strength.
Oh.
And yeah, who's got more power. And ultimately, he's saying that the power here is by showing faith and love and compassion. Strange thing. There's, again, I because everybody has their own disciplines in the world. You have those little private Facebook groups, where only Presbyterian ministers are in or something like that. I mean, yeah, it's not as exciting as it sounds. It really isn't. But here we are. And so, and the two things that are dominating those conversations these days, number one, the new changes to the Board of Pensions coming next year, which is going to be extremely interesting to how congregations are going to be able to afford it. Not to put we're going to be just fine because I'm an older minister, and so I don't have children in the home. It's not going to hurt us at all. But that's one piece, and the other one is this amazing, interesting conversation I'm watching. And again, it hasn't happened to me, so I'm just it's kind of fascinating to sit on the outside and listen in and watch these conversations. But this conversation over the Sermon on the Mount, and how some people have been preaching that in churches, in their church, and responses they're getting back are, who comes up with this crazy stuff? That this is just too weak. Nobody wants to listen to this anymore. And they're like, I'm quoting Jesus here. and so there is this interesting confrontation that we're having within church circles, and they're saying this is just propaganda about, it's just too weak. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know how I'm going to react when my day comes to that. But I mean, and hopefully I don't. I'll just have to say, well, I guess this church isn't for you. I don't know. But they're like, yeah. And so I find this kind of encounter he's having with them about conquering, that faith conquers the world, and that how that we approach that today, that we have to stay in this mode as the faith, that we have to trust that this Jesus who walked on the planet, who encountered people that other people rejected, that his love and compassion is what really changes the world, even when it seems contrary to what we think or see. Right? And we do have, interesting interactions right now in the world about power and faith, and I don't have to, college campuses today, what we see and see it, and I'm watching friends have these interactions over Gaza, Israel, and I'm like, yikes. They're really getting ugly towards each other, And really what I think we all really want is we don't want children in Gaza to be killed, and we don't want our Jewish friends to be killed either, too, right? That's really what we want. And everybody just keeps, it's just like, okay, I'm going to yell louder, and my way is going to be right, and I'm going to conquer you by one-upsman. And he's saying, wrong, not going to work. And for these people who are, whatever exchange they're going through from this outside group to the church, he's saying, you're not going to win by arguments. You're not going to win by one-upsmanship or louder or beating the other person up, or you're going to win by sticking to the faith and by showing compassion to each other within the church. And he says it's not burdensome. I'll leave that up to you. That's not, I just think that, I think maybe he's talking more really and truly that this is the work that the church has to be about. And that we're committed to that. Time's up. Gotta go. Let's pray. Gracious God, we give thanks for your love and your mercy and for the challenge of what it means to conquer the world with our faith. May we be faithful in this congregation to continue in the struggle, to be committed to one another, committed to you, and that